Welcome to this video, which is going to be all about the Yamaha YRM-104 cartridge for the Yamaha CX5M. What a mouthful. This is called the FM Macro Cartridge, but really, what does that actually mean? This is the third time I've recorded this segment because I'm just about in the middle of the segment and something has gone on outside, and the workshop is not particularly well soundproof, so if people are screaming outside the house, you hear it on the tape. So I've had to restart. Anyway, this video is about this cartridge, which was one of the early cartridges released for the CX5M. It's called the FM Music Macro. It came in a big box like that originally. There's the big box, and was also sold in France in the same big box called Logic de Music Macro FM. And so I apologise for anyone who speaks French, because I know my French pronunciation is lousy. Pop that back over there for the time being. So what was this? This was a cartridge that you plugged into this machine, and my cartridge, even though the box is a little bit battered, it's actually still got the foam insert in it. The cartridge was still wrapped in the original cellophane, in the original not cellophane, plastic bag that it came in from new, and also this 70 isn't it? Yeah, 77 page book or instruction manual or owner's manual also came with this. And one of the things that I will say is, if you're a beginner to the 104, you need the book. Okay, you can't use this without the book. I'm sure you can go online and find places, or you can download this, but you really do need this instruction manual to get you going. Because what the FM Music Macro Cartridge does is it extends the basic on the MSX machine to allow you to programmatically talk to the synthesizer. Now, those that don't know the Yamaha CX5M machine, and there were various iterations of this is a third gen version of the machine. It's the CX5M-128. But for those that don't know what this was, Yamaha issued a computer with effectively an SGF-01/05 cartridge underneath it, which just slotted in and out. And that cartridge, what it did was it made this computer into a 4-operator synthesizer. Okay, in actual fact, the people in the know have said that the cartridge, the SG-05 cartridge, which was the upgrade from the early cartridge, which was the SGF-01 cartridge, have said that the actual cartridge itself is akin to an FB-01. So if you have got an FB-01, that's effectively what you've got in one of these machines. So expanding the basic allows you to actually write programs on the MSX that uses the synthesizer module. And it goes slightly further than that, because not only can you use the synthesizer module, you can actually play 4 voices from the synthesizer module simultaneously. You can play back 8 separate parts. So 4 voices, 8 parts, split over 8 parts. You can create individual rhythm tracks, and you can also, and this is probably the pièce de résistance, you can also get it to send the data that it is playing via MIDI. And for that you do need the SFG 05. I can't remember whether it's SFG or SGF. I think it's SFG 05 cartridge, because it wouldn't work on the 01 cartridge. But I still struggle with, what would I have used this for? But let's boot this up and you can get an idea of what's going on. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Now, if you've seen the CX5M MSX machine in the past, you will know that when you boot this thing up, if you've got the cartridge inserted, then it normally will go straight into the cartridge. Now, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, but with this one it doesn't. The only indication you've got that you've got this cartridge actually loaded is on the screen now. It tells you that it has the macro cartridge loaded, and then all of a sudden that will disappear and you'll get the standard MSX Basic version 1.0 screen. Okay, so there's no idea that this thing's actually doing anything to this particular machine. Now, in normal terminology, what you would do is if you wanted to run the FM operator synth, you would type in the command call music, and that then calls the sub BIOS on the SGF-0105 card that's inserted in this machine, and up comes a keyboard with the 4 voices 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only got 1 voice activated at the moment, but if I go up there I can change the voices on each one of those tracks, and I can also adjust the volume. And if I were then to play something on my keyboard, you get, in this case, a pipe organ played. Now, what you can't do, and what I have not been able to find out, and don't say you can't do it, I just have not been able to find reference to it, that when you actually go into the synthesizer, how you exit the synthesizer without having to switch the machine off. But in this place, I'm going to do it the easy way. I'm going to switch the machine off. I'm going to switch the machine back on. I'm going to give it a second or so to boot up. Let's get into some notation. Now, what you would have seen me do is, in the previous example, to get into the synthesizer, I would have typed in the command call. That tells the machine that it needs to go into the sub BIOS, and then I would have said music. I can also, although it's not very well notated, I can use underscore music to do the same thing. If I now close that, it will now boot up into the synthesizer. Again, I've got to get out of this, so I'll just reboot the machine. Give me a sec. So what they did is said you can write a program. And you could write a program using call. So you could say call oops, no, can't actually write a program. 10. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pinch one of their examples for this. Oh, I'm having to write my own. Okay. So I've written a really basic program here, along with some dodgy keystrokes, because it always happens when somebody's looking over your shoulder or you're trying to do something like this. You make every mistake under the sun. So now I've written this program, and as you can see, I've used the terminology call against each one of those parameters I've written. I can now run it by typing the command run. What does it? Oh, missed the comma out. And it played, funny enough, C, D, E, F, G, which is what I told it to play. That's what the phrase piece, and I'll come back to that in a second. Now, I could rewrite that program using like so, and then if I then, you can now see I've got a combination of underscores and calls. If I now run that, does the same thing. The notation is interchangeable, and it's actually important that you use the underscore notation, because once you start getting into programming this thing, writing call against every phrase is going to be a pain in the bum. So that's the reason why they installed this underscore notation. So let me just do that to lines 30 and lines 40 like so. And there's the program rewritten. If I run it, we get the program that I've just written in there. And it's playing the synthesizer, and I am recording the synthesizer using, it's coming straight out of this into my voice recorder. I know I can hear it faintly on the TV screen, but I was getting a horrible hum when I was doing this the other day. So I've now balance the signals and put them straight into the voice recorder, so hence the reason why you're probably seeing there's a wire here to my cans, because I've been listening back to it. But the bottom line is that I have programmatically allowed this machine to run or play the synthesizer without using the keyboard to play the synthesizer. If I press keys on the keyboard, absolutely nothing happens, because I'm not in synthesizer mode. So I am in the computer mode. I'm calling the synthesizer from the basic program. Right, so I'm now going to explain what each of these things mean, and you kind of use these kind of four main programming commands with other bits of what you do, but these four are quite important, so I'll explain what they mean. The first command, INIT, stands for initialize, and effectively what that does is it tells the computer to ignore any previous commands that may be left over in memory. So if I wanted to change the instrument, or I wanted to change what this thing was playing, then it would effectively will wipe that back to zero. So it initializes the sound module. The second phrase, install, or INST, is telling the computer which one of the four parts this piece of code is trying to play. The third line, phrase, is saying what do I want to play in part 1. So in this case I'm playing C, D, E, F, G. Nothing major about that. I could extend that to say like that. Return. So now you can see my new note pattern has been put into the machine. And if I run this, I don't like something. I'll put a dot in there. And now I could, at this point, hit F5. And it will run it. Okay, for those that didn't understand that, if you look along the bottom of the screen, you've got colour, auto, go to, list, run, which effectively go with the 5 function keys that sit at the top of the keyboard, and they will literally just do that, execute that command. So in this particular instance, list will list, run, will run it. And the final line of code, which is the play command, actually tells the machine what I am trying to play. So I'm trying to play part 1 with instrument 1. Okay, that's how it works. Very simply. Now I'm going to do something. I'm going to stop the camera. I'm going to program something in, and then just you can see how it kind of gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, I've just spent probably the best part of the last hour, I suppose, putting something a little bit more, how do I say, interesting into the FM Macro program. Now you can do lots of things with the FM Macro program, so this is trying to give you a sort of a few ideas. Now I have changed the program a bit. So the program now looks like this. Let me explain what I've done. I've inserted line 25, which is _Modi, and that's telling part 1 to play instrument 4. Now instrument 4 happens to be strings on the FM synthesizer, so this is now playing with strings. I've then set up a variable, in this case $1, which is in at line 40. I've then told the system to read the variables in until it gets to end and then play. So effectively what it does is it goes through and it sets up each one of my variable lines. Now if I go down and look at lines 100 through 150 in my basic program, you'll see that they have the word data. So effectively that's entering a string of characters that the system can read, and they're being read in as $1 as the variable, and therefore they play. So effectively it's playing the first one, then it plays the second one, then it plays the third one. Now this is really good, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because if you understand how to quickly edit on this, say for example I want to put in another line, but I want that line to be the same as line 130. If I go list 130, okay, 130 comes up, and I then turn around and say, actually I want 130 to be 160, like so. Do that, clear the screen, list, and you can now see that 160 is now a replica of 130. So there are some quick ways of doing things. So if you're programming a phrase, a musical phrase or a riff or something like that, you can effectively program the riff in, and then every time you want to repeat it you can do something like this. You can also set up, and I haven't done it in this piece, but you can also set up effectively phrases and then reference the phrases. So you can play in, I suppose like step sequencing would be the easiest way to describe it. So you program a pattern, and then you tell the machine play pattern 1, play pattern 2, play pattern 1, play pattern 3, play pattern 1, play pattern 4. And it will do that. There is a way of doing that. I haven't done it here, but you can do it. Now I'm going to get rid of line 160. So if I go 160 like so, and then list 160 is gone. Wonderful. So the question is, what is this and what does it sound like? Well, let's run it. And at that point it goes, boom. Yes, it's a very poor attempt at Europe Final Countdown. But it isn't easy to program this stuff in. And if you are going to do something like that, I mean, you know, that's what, less than a few seconds of the intro of Europe's Final Countdown, and that took me about an hour to program in. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to give you an idea of what FM Music Macro was all about. I may... what's the word I'm looking for? I may get enthusiasm to program some more stuff up in FM Music Macro, so that you can hear how this thing sounds, playing other bits and bobs, maybe playing two parts, maybe playing a rhythm part, but I kind of need to work up to doing that, and I need to work out what I'm going to actually do when I program it in. But I hope that that has been informative to some of you guys about what YRM-104 for the Yamaha CX5M Music Computer actually sounds like. And on that note, guess what? Live long and prosper, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.